I'm extraordinarily excited to open this event, launching the Take on Wall Street campaign. This is a project of a broad and a varied and a powerful set of organizations, and I want to thank all of the institutions and the individuals for putting it together. I think what animates us in doing this is a set of shared commitments. First, that one fundamental element of building an economy where prosperity is much more broadly shared is restoring Wall Street finance to its proper role as enabler of the real economy rather than its master. The people in this room don't need any reminder of just how imbalanced our economy has become, but consider just the fact that a single hedge fund manager, in this case Ken Griffin, made $1.7 billion last year. More in a single day than a minimum wage worker would make in more than 300 years, which is more than 100,000 days. Second, that widespread public anger at Wall Street's power and influence and frustration at rigged rules of the economic game, which leave more and more people struggling and often do the most harm to the people with the least wealth and in communities of color, and the visibility of that anger and frustration this election year create a tremendous opportunity and demand for action. And third, that we need to take advantage of the moment to engage and mobilize people around the country to tell the story of the harm done by out-of-control finance, to lay out a set of policy priorities that would rewrite the rules in favor of the rest of us, and to hold leaders and lawmakers accountable for taking the public interest side and joining us in fighting for these changes. So we're launching this campaign in Washington right now, but we're setting out to work together on it around the country. Today, many of us are also kicking off a giant round of online coordinated communication that will reach millions of people. And not too long after that, we'll be holding a teletown hall with many thousands of grassroots leaders. And you'll also see the first of what will be a series of creative actions drawing attention to the painful consequences of Wall Street abuses. And there'll be more to come after that. Before I turn the podium over to Senator Warren, I want to list the current participants in the campaign. We expect there'll be more, but they are right now the AFL-CIO, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, American Family Voices, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the American Federation of Teachers, the American Postal Workers Union, the American Federation of Government Employees, Americans for Financial Reform, Campaign for America's Future, Catholic Alliance for the Common Good, the Center for Popular Democracy, Citizen Action New York, the Communications Workers of America, Consumer Action, the Courage Campaign, Daily Kos, Democracy for America, Economic Policy Institute. There's a game at Passover we play in our family that's a little like reading this fast. Friends of the Earth, Hedge Clippers, Institute for Policy Studies, the Global Economy Project, the International Union of United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Media Voices for Children, Move On, National Education Association, Network, NYC Communities for Change, the Other 98%, People for the American Way, People's Action Institute, Presente, Public Citizen, Roots Action, the Service Employees International Union, the Strong Economy for All Coalition, the Nation, the Root Strikers at Demand Progress, Unite Here, Working America, and the Working Families Party. And now, it's a pleasure and an honor to introduce Senator Warren, whose incredible leadership in calling out Wall Street domination of our economy and of our politics and in laying out a vision for change are so inspiring and such a tremendous part of what makes it possible, for me at least, to imagine that we can actually win the battles for a more just financial system that we're talking about today. Senator Warren.
Thank you very much. It is so good to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I just want to say, and thank you for your outstanding leadership for Americans for Financial Reform. Thanks for all you do. It's hard work to be done every day. It is good to be here with so many people who are committed to strengthening Wall Street reform, people who are committed to building an economy that works for all of our families. I am glad to be in the same corner with all of you because let's face it, Washington works great if you are a big bank with armies of lawyers and lobbyists, if you have zillions of dollars to sink into campaigns and super PACs. It works great if you like the revolving door between Washington and Wall Street that spins so fast it could make you dizzy. And the only way that is going to change is if we fight back. We are here today to talk about Wall Street reform. So, here we are, nearly 8 years after the financial crisis, more than 5 years after we passed Dodd-Frank financial reforms, And where are we exactly? So if you will, bear with me for just a short history lesson. I promise I'll keep this quick. But it's important because to judge Dodd-Frank, to see whether or not it has been a success, we need to compare it to the last time the economy crashed, 1929. So back then, policymakers saw what was wrong and they made three big changes. First, we put a cop on Wall Street, right? We created the SEC and we told them to enforce the rules to keep the playing field level. Second, we made it safe to put money in banks. FDIC insurance meant that no one lost a hard-earned paycheck in a bank failure. And third, we separated boring banking from the high-flying Wall Street investing. And that was Glass-Steagall, so that the banks couldn't use FDIC guaranteed money in grandma's checking account to pump up their profits with high-risk trading. Three things. And for half a century, those rules worked. There was not a single major financial crisis. Regulation can work. We have to remember that. Have to remember it. Because then, right around 1980, the political wind shifted. Deregulation was the watchword of the day, or to put it more bluntly, fire the cops. Not the cops on Main Street, the cops on Wall Street. Regulators looked the other way when big financial institutions found more ways to trick people on credit cards, on mortgages, on home equity lines of credit. I hope you all saw The Big Short, right? Everybody in here saw The Big Short, you bet. And you saw in that how the credit rating agencies signed off on billions of dollars worth of fraudulent mortgages so that pension funds bought them, so that towns bought them. And the consequence was they thought they were buying something that was safe, but they were not. And finally, the wall between high-risk trading and boring banking was knocked down, and Glass-Steagall was repealed. Now, what happened? When the cops were blindfolded and the big banks were turned loose, the worst crash since the 1930s hit the American economy. And the moral of this story is pretty simple. Without basic government regulation, financial markets don't work. And the cheaters skate free while a lot of good, hardworking people get hurt. So that means it comes to us to get this right. The rules that protect our economy boil down to just two basic principles. The first one, financial institutions shouldn't be allowed to cheat people. I know that that's controversial in some places, but I want you to think about it. When giant financial institutions are allowed to build their businesses around a model that cheats people, not only are those folks ripped off, but over time it puts the whole economy at risk. And second, financial institutions shouldn't be allowed to force taxpayers to bail them out. The repeal of Glass-Steagall meant that stock traders could gamble using the money in grandma's checking account. And the TARP bailout is the reminder that when banks get too big to fail, then we all pay. Now, the departure from those two basic ideas, no cheating and no pushing the risks onto taxpayers, caused the 2008 financial crisis. And when judged against these two ideas, we have made a lot of progress under the Dodd-Frank financial reforms, but we've also got a lot more to do. So first, let's evaluate it. No more cheating people. Dodd-Frank took a powerful step toward honest markets with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's what it did. We now have one agency focused on weeding out the tricks and traps in mortgages, in credit cards, in student loans, and other financial products. That little agency has already forced the largest financial institutions in this country to return more than $11 billion directly to people they cheated. Now, that's government that works. That's right. The big banks and their friends in Washington are doing everything they can to weaken and water down the CFPB. They spent money on ad campaigns, attacking me, attacking Rich Cordry, attacking the Consumer Agency. On the last anniversary of Dodd-Frank, Ted Cruz introduced a bill to repeal the CFPB in its entirety. And we can all laugh, but boy, what this makes clear is we better be ready to fight back. Second, the Justice Department and the SEC need to get serious about prosecution against institutions and executives who break the law. Bank regulators don't take financial institutions to trial ever, which means that nobody's ever threatened with jail time. They just pay a fine and move right on. And violating the law becomes just a cost of doing business for a big financial institution. We need regulators who work for us, not for the institutions they're supposed to regulate. That's exactly right. And then third, remember something. More than a quarter of all families have no checking or savings account. These families typically rely on payday lenders and check cashing, which can trick and trap people into paying rates they cannot possibly afford. Now, the CFPB is busy working on reining in payday lenders, but we could do something really innovative here. Let the United States post offices offer basic banking services, bill paying, check cashing, small dollar loans, so that hardworking people don't have to rely on the payday lenders who rip them off. It is good for families, it's good for the post office, and it's good for postal workers. Let's do it. You bet. Okay, that's 3 on the no cheating. What about our second goal? And that is no too big to fail, no pushing risks onto the taxpayers. Well, Dodd-Frank imposed some discipline, but let's get real. Dodd-Frank did not end too big to fail. If you think it did, stand on your head, because you are looking at the world upside down. Look at the facts. Many of the big banks are bigger than they were when the economy crashed in 2008 and we were told they were too big to fail. At the end of 2014, they got the law changed so that they could bring $10 trillion in risky derivatives into their banks. And 2 months ago, the Fed and the FDIC declared that 7 of the largest banks in this country were so big and so dangerous that if any one of them started to fail, they would bring down the whole economy unless they got bailed out again. Too big to fail still stalks this economy. So, what should we do about it? We need to work on ending too big to fail once and for all. First, break up the big banks. Break them up. We need to reinstate a 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act. It will break up some of the biggest banks, and it will separate boring commercial banking from risky investment banking. Now, I've introduced a bill with Senator John McCain, with Democrat Maria Cantwell, and with Independent Angus King. We are ready to go. We just need help fighting for it, and that's part of the reason I'm here today. And second, stitch up some tax loopholes. Let's start with executive compensation. Our tax code has a crazy loophole that rewards giant payouts for bank executives even when their institutions break the law. That is how J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon just got a $7 million pay raise last year, subsidized by the U.S. taxpayer. We can close that loophole. We can do that. Yeah. And another loophole, the carried interest loophole. In 2014, the 25 top earning hedge fund managers collected $11.6 billion in pay. 25 people, $11.6 billion. And these fund managers still get a special tax break. Instead of paying at the ordinary rate that you and I pay, they get a 50% off coupon on their taxes. Now, when 25 hedge fund managers don't pay their fair share on $11.6 billion in earnings, everyone else is left to pay the difference. We can close that loophole. We can close that one. Okay, and just one more. I could probably do this all day, but just one more. Financial transactions tax. Michael Lewis, the author of The Big Short, wrote another great book called Flash Boys. If you haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. It was about how high-frequency traders use gimmicks to make big bucks and, at the same time, add a lot of instability to the economy. We can pass a sales tax that doesn't hit mom and pop investors, but that targets high-frequency traders, and we can make our markets a lot more honest and a lot more stable. So there it is, 5 changes: postal banking, Glass-Steagall, executive compensation, carried interest loophole, and a financial transactions tax. 5 changes can make a real difference on Wall Street and a real difference in this economy. They can help protect hardworking families from cheats and liars. They can help rein in the recklessness and greed on Wall Street. They can end too big to fail. But most of all, these changes will make our financial markets stronger and healthier and give working families a fighting chance to build a real future for themselves and for their children. Now, let's face it, this will not be an easy fight. Wall Street has money, plenty of money. They have money and they have access to a lot of senators and a lot of congressmen. But we didn't take on this fight because it's easy. We took on this fight because it is right. And that's why I'm here with you today, and why I am glad, why I am proud to be part of the Take on Wall Street campaign. We are in this fight because someone has to be willing to fight back, and that's us. If we fight shoulder to shoulder, we will win. We are partners in this one all the way. Thank you. Go get them.
Undercurrent under the surface makes the mainstream get so nervous. It's time for purpose, for news to serve us, not with propaganda they use to hurt